David Cronenberg's The Fly is one of the greatest horror movies ever made. It is a slow, creeping, and grotesque film that lures you in with its endearing cast of characters. The first part of the film is simply a romantic one, and I find it to be one of the sweetest I have ever seen, which is what makes this film scare me to my core. Its very opera-esque nature, with its structure and tone, lures you into a lot of the drama and a lot of the relationships between the characters. This film was turned into an opera, in fact, and with such a haunting and beautiful soundtrack, it's no wonder why. The soundtrack is one of the most memorable things about this movie, and it resonates with me so strongly. I can listen to some tracks by themselves, and I do feel as though I am preparing myself to get my heart wrenched out. Yet no matter how many times I have seen this film, it still hurts me from the very words of
cheeseburger
to the very last second. Hello, my name is Seamus McNeil and I am with Grasp Your Heart Productions. The original Fly film that came out in 1958, based on the short story by George Langeland, is one that is interesting. It deals with the instantaneous change of a man who has become half human, half fly. But I feel as though it rushes into it too quickly to have a full impact. This is why I much prefer David Cronenberg's version of the story. He's changed all of the characters and the general structure of the plot. He even changed the genre, turning it into more of a romantic film than a straight horror film. What makes this work for me is the fact that it deals with the gradual decay of a human being, and it's a very strong resonance with those who deal with disease and also the loved ones who have to watch the afflicted transform. I do think that the movie has many strong symbols, but I think that today I am going to be focusing on the insect, the fly itself, and why it is the perfect animal for this film. We get a strong opening title sequence where we, the audience, are given the perspective of a fly on the wall. The dancing red against the blue is a very good impersonation of how a fly actually views the world. This is a very powerful image as we are immediately given the eyes of a fly in the opening seconds of the film, unnoticed and watching all of these people moving. However, we return to the usual human perception when we see Seth Brundle, played by Jeff Goldblum, and Veronica Quaife, played by Gina Davis. We see Seth attempt to get Veronica to see his project that will change the world. The awkward and strange mannerisms of Seth is very endearing. It is obvious he has very little social skills.
You can tell that.
But his genuine passion for his work makes him all the more interesting. He eventually convinces her to go to his house. This is where we are given the base motivation of the project.
Motion sickness when I was a kid.
A minor inconvenience in the grand scale of illnesses, but is one that is highly uncomfortable. It does cause him to vomit, which is a very subtle foreshadowing of Brundle's fate. From the first scenes of the film, the eradication of a disease being the primary motive for creating the telepods is important. The want to be free of disease and pestilence is one of the keys to the survival of the human race. Medicine is one of the most funded and largest industries in the world. How could it not be? We fear disease. Epidemics on any scale, or even the threat of an epidemic, shakes us to our core. It will cover news channels for weeks. Look at diseases such as swine flu, bird flu, Ebola, AIDS, cancer. They dominate our lives even if we are never affected directly. That is why the fly is the ultimate symbolic animal for this movie. It is unnoticed and seen as insignificant, much like Seth is, but it can change the very fundamentals of society. At its heart, The Fly is a romantic film. The film begins with Seth and Veronica's first encounter. We see intimacy, playful banter, and a connection between the two. Yet all that changes once the fly appears in the chamber with Seth. The reason for Seth going into the chamber alone is caused by Veronica leaving to deal with Stathis threatening to reveal Seth's years of research without his consent. Stathis is an interesting character who, while he does not have much screen time, is pivotal to the movie. However, I noticed that Stathis is also compared to an animal, the baboons. The first baboon to enter the telepod gets turned inside out. While Stathis is a real piece of work beforehand, the transformation is also linked back to him. In his most horrific and ugliest moment of confronting Veronica in public, he is like a tantruming ape. Screaming, throwing things, and generally being aggressive shows him indulging in his primal side. However, when the second baboon comes out of the telepod unharmed and normal, we see Stathis referred to his more composed self and is perhaps even a better person. He's still crude and sex-driven, but he is more focused on making Veronica know that he is there for her, more than she is going to be used as an object. Stathis becoming the unconventional hero is also a fairy opera element.
You're disgusting. As always.
When Seth emerges from the pod, we the audience know what is going to happen, but the characters have no idea what is about to occur. This uncomfortable unraveling of Seth becoming a hybrid between fly and man is a disaster we cannot help but watch. Most would have fallen in love with the characters at this point, and it will be heart-wrenching to see the tragedy unfold. Because it's a tragedy many of us are familiar with. Disease. Be it ourselves or others who have been afflicted, we know the effects of disease. It is ingrained in all of life. The idea of something rotting away while it can do nothing but watch as it withers. This is a primal, innate fear we all have. The fear that perhaps not only ourselves may be afflicted, but the ones we love as well. The fly, however, has an influence immediately. Flies have a far shorter lifespan than humans. They have a need to procreate and devour any food to meet the requirement of survival. We could say insects are the furthest animal group from mammals. The unstoppable and hyperactivity of Seth and his addiction to sugar is very similar to that of a fly. Yet unbeknownst to Seth, he is simply the larva, the shell for the brundlefly to develop. While the baboon is a close relative to humans as a primate, the theory of the machine understanding the flesh by understanding primates is one of the key revelations after Seth understands the intimacy of sex. An intimacy not shared by insects.
They're very brutal. No compassion. No compromise.
Sometimes even devouring their mates after intercourse as their usefulness has been fulfilled, and it is usually the female of the species that does so in order to provide nutrients for the eggs. The legacy. The insect and Seth are in a constant battle over control of the body and mind. This deformation of the human form is shown through the decaying of flesh, the removal of needless body parts, and the enhanced physical traits of man and fly. Seth weakens at a certain stage, like that of a newly emerged maggot. He grows stronger and stronger and continues to follow the cycle of a maggot transforming into a pupa, until he reaches the stage he can emerge as brundlefly. The innate envy of the fly shows how much it wants to survive. Through Seth believing he is dying, it shows the base instinct of survival. The plan to continue merging with humans to counteract the fly's genetic interference shows how much preferable humans are to the fly's survival. Flies are often parasitic creatures, laying eggs in corpses and even living hosts. It wants to rely on other things to continue existing. It has deemed humans are the best choice for hosts.
I'm saying I'm an insect who dreamt he was a man and loved it. But now the dream is over, and the insect is awake.
Legacy is a trait we commonly think of as human. We're passing on a business, house, or object to our offspring or perhaps someone we find suitable. However, the need for passing on legacy is also genetic. We want our family line to continue. It is nature's call for us to have children and to continue the bloodline, for if there is no continuation, we die in history. Forgotten. That fear is what causes Seth to abduct Veronica and prevent her from having the abortion. Because the human wants his humanity to live on, yet the insect wants his bloodline to not be destroyed as well. The saddest aspect of this is that the human could not fight the fly, for the insect and man agreed.
Too bad.
The finale is a harrowing and shocking one. The transformation of Seth into Brundlefly is complete. The pupa shell is needless and the being hidden within is unveiled. A revolting abomination emerges. The need to merge with a human and offspring is that of survival in the eyes of Brundlefly. The insect has won the politics of the brain. Yet it is man's unrelenting will to prevent the death of his beloved that stops the selfish monster. The final transformation is complete, and we witness the revelation of the final stage of Brundlefly. A human, fly, and machine fused into one. The agony of this causes Brundlefly to point a gun to his own head, held by Veronica. The most horrific part about this is it is Seth, the human, who places the gun against his head. The difference between how insects and humans feel pain is revealed. Insects simply receive a signal that alerts them of the pain. Humans feel the searing, writhing pulse of unending agony. Seth is suffering and wants it to end, even if it is by the hands of his beloved. The ending is a metaphor for euthanization. A man has fought and struggled, fading from the form he was before the disease befell him. He wanted to find a cure desperately. He pushed those he loved away from him. He tried to endure the disease until it was undeniably destroying him. He wanted those that he loved to see him, so he may be remembered not as a beast but as a man, yet he would not be able to be remembered as that man. It was a terminal metamorphosis. The disease took his mind and forced his body to perform its bidding, to reach out to the healthy loved ones and force them to enact a possible cure for the disease. The disease made him want to switch places with his beloved simply so he could have a chance to be cured. Yet he reaches the final stage of being forcefully linked with a machine, forced to live in an unending, agonizing existence. He will die regardless, so why not ask those who can to put an end to his misery? This horror is very real, and it happens daily, maybe every hour of the year. The Fly is a spectacular film. It's one of the greatest I have ever seen. The fact that it isn't the monster that truly scares you, but so much of what the invader has done to a man is truly harrowing. The terrifying nature of a disease, changing the very structure of your being, is something that terrifies all of us. To also be a romantic tragedy makes it so that you fall in love with the characters and you want them to survive, but you know the fate of Seth Brundle, and because of that you cannot stop watching. Happy Halloween, everyone. Hope you enjoyed today's video essay, and I most certainly enjoyed creating it. I do think that this film is going to stand the test of time for a very long time, thanks to its practical effects, its acting, its performances from everyone, the set design, and the story being one that truly hurts. My name is Seamus McNeil, I am with Grasp Your Heart Productions. If your heart's racing, then so is your mind, and I hope to see you all in another video.